Readiness Scorecard info session.
That's right. So yes, thanks, Mike, and thank you everyone for joining for just a short session today. We don't want to take up too much of your busy day. So information session today, you would have seen already the launch has just happened in the last couple of weeks of the Resilience Readiness Scorecard. We're going to give you a brief overview of that and just in a bit more detail, and as Michael said, have an opportunity for some questions. So we'll just go flick through. We've just got a few slides. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, traditional custodians of country. We pay our respects to elders and ancestors past and present and extend that respect to those with us today. As we know, sovereignty has never been ceded. So I'm coming from Kabi land on the Sunshine Coast today and acknowledge any traditional owners we have with us today. Next slide. So for those that don't know us, I'm Natasha Odgers, the Disaster Resilience Sector Lead with Neighbourhood Centres Queensland. Have been focused on the disaster work since it began with the peak body since 2019. So I hand over to Micah.
And hi everyone, I'm Micah. So I've just joined Neighbourhood Centres Queensland a lot more recently than Tash. So I've been with NCQ for probably, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 months now, I reckon. And I am the project officer, kind of looking after this Resilience Readiness Scorecard project. This is kind of being one of the big, well, it's really the most substantial part of my role at NCQ. So it's been awesome working on this for the past few months, and excited that we launched.
So just a bit of context of why we really want to highlight this at the moment, because in the 2024 to 2025 period, there was 73 out of 77 local government areas in Queensland that were significantly affected by disaster. So this was meaning that was a formal activation by the state government with community recovery. So the majority of Queensland was significantly affected just in the last year. So we would understand that many, probably all of you, no doubt have experienced disaster in recent times and understand the value for this work to happen in terms of building community resilience around disasters. So we hope that this tool is something that can be shared broadly to think about in terms of those that you work with and also your own centres, for looking at how ready are you for disasters in terms of your organisational resilience. So we'll go to the next slide. So just as a broad sweep overview, this scorecard project is coordinated by Neighbourhood Centres Queensland, and it's facilitated with neighbourhood centres, 4 neighbourhood centres, so in Cairns, in Hervey Bay, in Redlands, and the Lockyer Valley. So as a bit of background, we had the Community Services Industry Alliance was a peak that did hold this project and this scorecard in its developmental stages a few years ago. That body folded, and as neighbourhood centres were actually the core cluster of groups that were involved in co-designing this scorecard, it was accumulated by Neighbourhood Centres Queensland to continue this project. So these neighbourhood centres had largely already been part of this project. Most of them had already been part of this project. So it was a selection process of working directly with those already in the process already, or their local government areas had put a letter of support and had already developed a relationship with this project. So Neighbourhood Centres Queensland is supporting the Resilience Readiness Scorecard really to help community groups, organisations, so neighbourhood centres and other organisations, and services, which could be a local, very localised service right through to a state or national service. So it's to build the resilience to disasters, and it is in the broadest context of disasters. It can be any kind of disaster or like event that happens. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a natural disaster. It may be a specific event that has been devastating for a community. But typically, it'll probably come into the conversation topic around floods, fires, and storms. So the aim of the scorecard is to check how ready our organisations are, like Neighbourhood Centres, for disasters, and to provide some guidance to bolster your resilience. So Mike is going to go into that a bit further of how that looks. But I'd just like to, firstly, I guess, just highlight that it has been redeveloped. It's been had a look over the whole scorecard from what it was. It was originally live. It didn't have a huge spread when it was originally put out, but the work has been put in since it's come to Neighbourhood Centres Queensland to shape it a bit more to be more applicable to that community group level. So it might be your local Rotary group, churches, so that local level group to your mid-organisation level group, and as I said, services of any size. So that's taken a bit of massaging work to happen, and trying to get the language right that it can be applicable across these different scales. So before we move on to further detail about the actual scorecard, does anyone have any burning questions about what we've covered so far? Okay, we might just move on there, Micah.
Cool. Okay, so I have the task of sharing a little bit about the tool itself. So shortly, I'm going to attempt to share my screen to actually go through the tool itself. But before I do that, I'll just give you a really brief summary of what the scorecard is. And really, like put simply, it's really just, as that first line says, it's an online tool to check how ready local centres, groups, organisations and services are for disasters. So I guess the question that we're using in our promotions is your organisation ready, or are you ready for the next disaster? Are you disaster ready? So basically the scorecard itself takes you through a whole range of different questions that can, I guess, prompt discussion or prompt maybe even little actions or ideas for ways that you could bolster your resilience as an organization. And it takes you through questions in 3 overarching domains. Pictured on the screen there. So the 3 domains are change readiness, leadership and culture, and networks and collaboration. So these have actually not just come out of nowhere. These are research-backed domains and areas that sort of they're umbrellas for the 13 indicators of a resilient organization, which was research put out and supported through the Australian government and multiple university sources as well. So the questions have all come under those umbrellas and those resilience indicators. So let me, before I actually show you, I'll say, I'll just speak to this a little bit. So why should we do the scorecard? I mean, there's a number of points here. I won't read all of them, but really the main point is the main reason that we are saying that you should do the scorecard is to see how ready you are for the next disaster. And some of the other points around seeing what's working well. Maybe there's areas where you need further work on. And the other thing I'd just like to highlight as well is um, also tracking progress over time. So there's the option of being able to complete this now, complete this, in the coming weeks, and then complete it again next year to see sort of how your organisation and how your centre has progressed over time in the different resilience indicators. So how do you use the scorecard? Really, it's just as simple as going to the scorecard website, answering questions. You are prompted to add examples if you would like to. We encourage you to add some examples because it helps you to sort of take it a little bit slower and reflectively. And you basically come out with a report once you've finished the questions. It could take you anywhere from, I've been looking at the average time taken. It could take you anywhere from sort of 15 minutes to an hour. That's sort of the average time so far that people have been taking to complete the scorecard. It could take you a little bit longer if you really are sitting down with multiple people in your organization and you're really trying to nut out plans and strategies to that have been prompted from the questions. But anyway, we'll go from that place of answering all those questions. You've taken the 15 minutes, maybe you've taken an hour to complete all the different questions. You'll then be provided with a report, which I think a really key thing to highlight here is you'll be given a number of actions that you can choose to review, and also a whole set of resources that we've sort of collated and put together. Some have been made by CSIA, the previous organisation that held this project, and others we've just sourced from trusted sources, but they're good resources. So it's the report's just really a chance for you to then look at your results, reflect, and take any actions you'd like to as your organisation. So let me now just attempt to share my screen. Okay. Gosh, is that visible? Just because we were like, is it going to work doing the PowerPoint and the website? Yeah, that is cool. Thank you. So basically, I'll just take you through what the website looks like. So let me go to the welcome page. So once you enter the website, you're prompted to start a scorecard. So we do have like a little welcome video that is on the welcome page, which is a bit of fun. That's Tash and I talking to the scorecard. And then let me take you through here. I've got like just a test scorecard. So this is probably a good chance for me to show you what it could look like. So you'll be sort of prompted to start an assessment. Obviously it says resume assessment here because I've already started one. Providing just some basic details. Most of this is optional, but yeah, it is really, it's really good for us to know, even just at the end of the reporting period for our funders, who is the National Emergency Management Agency. There's some really good demographic stats that we can put in for the reporting process. So yep, so I'll just go through here. This is your local government area. Maybe you have multiple. And this is what the actual scorecard looks like. So I was mentioning the umbrella domains. So change, readiness, leadership and culture, and networks and collaboration. And these are the 13 resilience indicators. So unity of purpose, proactive posture, planning strategies, etc. So each of these has like a number of questions that you will answer. Basically, it's very simple. It's really answering from strongly disagree right the way through to strongly agree, and then a chance to add examples. you do have to go through each of these sections one by one. Yeah, you can't sort of skip ahead through to different sections, but we've had some people give feedback that they're hoping just to do one section at a time. So that's an option. If you're limited on time, you can just sort of pause it, save, and exit. And I'll just give you a really quick run through the report just so you can have a look at what that looks like. So when you finish the Resilience Readiness Scorecard, you are provided with a report which is downloadable. And it will basically give you a summary of your results. So it'll give you an overall resilience readiness position. I was quite generous, obviously, in my in my test run. It's put me in a bounce forward category, and there's a number of other categories. So decline, survive, neutral, bounce back, and bounce forward. And you'll get a score for each of the 3 domains that we mentioned. So change readiness, leadership culture, networks, and collaboration. And then you'll also be provided then with a breakdown of each specific area, each specific resilience indicator, I should say. So, for example, in this case, stress testing plans was rated as neutral. So you can see here some resources that are available for each domain, and you can click through to each domain and see some suggested actions that have been put together here, and also peer reviewed. So some really good actions for you to sort of review and use for your planning as a result of the scorecard. That's just a really quick whirlwind round of the resource, and I hope that kind of gives you some familiarity with it, and I hope it gives you a little bit of interest in giving it a go. To see the presentation back up.
And while Mike is just putting the presentation back up, with those areas where you can put examples, it's also something, and we're going to adjust it slightly to indicate this, but it's an area too where we've found as you're going through it, you might also want to put down particular actions that come to mind as you're discussing it with colleagues, say, for example. So you might have, this is how we're currently doing it, and then also in that box, just so you've got it as a point to come back to any ideas that spring to mind of what else you could do in that area. Great, Micah, thank you.
Yeah, and I just remembered 2 other things I was going to mention as well. One is, I know that there's some really some very knowledgeable people even in this room today, and maybe you're watching this at a later time, couldn't make the information session, and you have skills or expertise to input. We are still in a process where we can make alterations to the scorecard. So if you go through and do it and something just isn't sitting right with you, please let us know, because the reality is, we have inherited this tool and we've made it our own, and we've been working with our neighbourhood centre partners to really make it the best it can be. But we also know that there could still be things that we need to tweak and change, etc. So we would really, really value and appreciate any advice or feedback you have if you go through it. So there's still an element of it being constructed. And the other thing I was just going to briefly mention is 13 neighbourhood centres have already completed the tool. So that's really exciting as well. That's almost a 10th of neighbourhood centres across Queensland have completed it since we launched 2 weeks ago. I think it was about 2 weeks ago today, I think. So, yeah.
So one other thing is we're going to be sending out information to neighbourhood centres with some promotional material about the scorecard. So if you think this is of value to people in your community, there's going to be some information that you're very welcome, and we encourage you to share around through your networks that they can just do independently. But also we're offering to be able to support you. So if you are interested in having, say, a workshop gathering multiple groups or organisations in your local area, as a workshop to be guided through, and with a facilitator guided through actually completing the scorecard, Neighbourhood Centres Queensland is, would love to talk to you about maybe co-hosting something. Also, there's the 4 neighbourhood centres that are working in a particular area. So if you're from an area that may align with where a neighbourhood centre already is, then we'd probably link you up with them. So yes, and then the last slide is there's some details of how to get onto it as well. I want to acknowledge the funders from the Australian government under the Disaster Ready Fund, and want to hand it over for any questions from you all. Questions? So can I ask if anyone may be willing to share from their own perspective of what they've just heard, if you think this is something that you would like to share with groups in your areas, groups or organisations in any particular way?
I can say something, Natasha. I actually did it. I'm one of the 13 that have done it.
Fantastic.
Yes, I haven't had time to sit down and analyse and actually understand it a bit more, but I think so. I think there's plenty of groups in our area that would love the opportunity to sit down. Lots of Rotary groups, lots of kind of small organisations. So yeah, I think it's a good tool.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Well, yeah, reach out anytime if you need any, if you'd like any support. Yeah, I think one thing that came up as a question in one talk I was giving was someone saying, oh, we've done our business continuity plan, so we don't need to do it. So I thought that's a really good thing. It's really distinguishing, and you would know, like, from doing it, it's not a business continuity planning process. It's actually a resilience readiness scorecard, meaning that it's about giving a whole organisation or a whole group rating and understanding of how resilient they are overall. And the suggested action may be something like start or further build on your business continuity plan, but in other, as well as looking at your culture in the organisation around change readiness and so on. Any other thoughts or comments or questions from anybody? Yes.
Hey, yeah, it looks pretty cool. I think I'd like to share it with the local community groups around our centre here. I think the thing you mentioned about having almost a debrief with the local groups afterwards sounds pretty cool. I think the biggest takeaway from the Christmas storms here on the Gold Coast were that all the different community groups were trying to help, but how they were connected and how they were helping doing different things was a bit of a gap. It was a bit confusing, a bit confuddled. So having that debrief after all the community groups do this survey and then come up with a bit of a game plan of what group does what could be really cool. But yeah, I like it.
That's great. That's great to hear, that thinking around that too. One of the, there is quite an emphasis, and we added purposely, I guess, the nature of neighbourhood centres sector, we really bolstered up the network and collaboration section of this to really encourage exactly what you're talking about, like come together, discuss it all together as community, link in with those local disaster management groups or local disaster management arrangements, like primarily through councils, all of that. So yeah, that's great to hear. Thank you.
Linda, you've got your hand up.
Is that me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, it's breaking up. I don't know whether it's me or not. I suppose, I'm very critical of how, when I was doing it, I'm like, oh, do we, where do we sit in that? And we are probably more prepared than, I probably think when I'm doing the scorecard, but it really depends on our funding. So like right now, we have a community resilience team that's doing disaster preparedness and stuff, but in, a few months' time, that will be completely different. And so, yeah, I'm just conscious of that, that you can go back and revise it at other times. And, the capacity of your staff as well, and the knowledge that they have in disasters as well, as teams change. We see the difference in, community organisations that have lived through a disaster already compared to others that their organisation has been through it, but the retention of staff has changed. I'm just, yeah.
Such a good point, Melinda. And I think that really highlights the importance of organisational disaster planning, which you've done very well there. And, being able to continue having systems in place where things are documented, where there's more opportunity for information to be communicated to new staff, changing staff, all of that. There's quite a bit of, there is a bit of emphasis on that in the scorecard as well, about in recommendations as well, in terms of how organisations looking at how well things are documented and actually developed together as whole teams as well. Well, it is at time. Were there any other